Hey guys, hope everyone's doing well. I miss you all a ton. I have 15 minutes to deliver you a lecture on Aperture because that is the first thing that we are going to do from moving on. How it's going to work a little bit is I will give you guys content on a Tuesday and then your assignment will hopefully be due a week later. The first thing that we're going to do now that we're back into it is our Aperture assignment. So we're currently working on photography exposure module. You'll have two assignments in this. They should both take you about a week. And then after those two assignments are completed, you'll be done the module. And then hopefully after that, I can deliver you guys two more modules. That would be digital processing and graphic tools. I've gotten a ton of emails from you guys, and I really appreciate those who filled out my survey and my assignments. I know there's a few of you who did do the survey, and I loved hearing your survey questions answered. The TV show recommendations were awesome. I apologize I didn't write you back. I did not click the button where I was allowed to respond to you. So a lot of you had some really great conversation starters, and I'm just unable to respond because I suck. Anyways, moving on. Aperture, here we go. I have less than 15 minutes now to deliver you the lovely world of Aperture. Also going forward, I hope that you guys can download those programs. If you can't, don't fret too much. There's a ton of free different ones that you guys can use, and I will discuss that a little bit later on in the presentation. Okay? So for this is our overarching module, photography exposure. Okay, we are currently working on Aperture Mastery. So you guys have done ISO, and ISO is a camera sensor and its sensitivity to light. Aperture is essentially a series of thin metal blades in the camera that makes up its iris. Okay, this iris is the camera's opening, and it closes and it opens to create either a bigger hole or a smaller hole to create different depths of field. An example of this you'll see is in iPhones when they have portrait mode, and you'll see that the subject is in full focus but the background may be blurred. Okay? So basically what you need to know is the smaller the number, so an f-stop of 1.4, you'll have a bigger hole. This lets in a ton more light, okay? Whereas you'll see f-stop here of 1.16 has a really, really small hole, which lets in a small amount of light, okay? So think of this one as a straw. When you look through a straw, everything is in focus. When you are looking out in the big world and you have nothing kind of pinpointed, things will be in different areas of focus, okay? So straw analogy for me really works for this one. If you have an f-stop of 22, the higher the number, the smaller the hole. Think of yourself looking through a tiny, tiny little straw and everything will be in focus. Whereas if you're just looking at something in the big picture, different things will come in and out of focus, okay? So here's an example of how it works. F22 is right here. Again, we're looking through that small, small hole. It's letting in a small amount of light, and everything in your foreground, which is the front plane of the picture, midground, and background, is in focus. Whereas here, f-stop of 2, you have only that mid plane in focus, okay? So think about the different areas of the picture, your background, your midground, and your foreground. Depth of field, we'll go back and forth between here. Shallow depth of field is when you have a ton of that background blur, okay? It's shallow, you can't see as much clarity in the shot, and you really want the viewer to look at something in particular. It's not they're grasping the entire scene, they're grabbing a particular subject in that scene, okay? So deep depth of field, you'll see here, F22, everything in your composition is in focus. Okay, F22, bigger the number, smaller the hole. F2, smaller the number, bigger the hole. Okay, once again, F1.4, smallest number, biggest hole. F16, smallest number, or biggest number, smallest hole. Okay, so here are two different shots right beside each other. Once again, your F2 or your f-stop of 2 would be a lot more light because the hole is quite big, the iris is expanded, those metal blades have opened up, and your subjects are in different fields of focus. Whereas again, you have a deep depth of field here, everything should be in focus. On your D2L site, there are a ton of videos that can go through this for you, and you guys can do those at your own pace. This is just sort of to get you guys started. Again, more videos for you. You'll find them on D2L, and I'll show you in a hot second where you can get those. Okay, so here, if you had to guess the aperture, here it's a really, really shallow depth of field. I can really see only that main foreground and a little bit of that background. I would guess the aperture to be around 1.4. Okay, 1.4 is a small number, so it's got a really big hole. There's a lot of light being let into the shot. Here, I'd say it's kind of mid. It's in the middle there. I'd say the aperture is around 6, maybe 5.8. And then here, everything looks like to be quite in focus. I would say the aperture is around 16, maybe. Okay, both the foreground, background, midground are all in focus. So deep depth of field here, shallow depth of field there. Oh, so 2.8 for that first photo, 5.6 for the second photo, and this third one is 11. Okay, so a little off, but you guys get the gist. So what we would have been doing today is you guys would have been playing with our DSLR cameras, but because we don't have those, I'm going to be asking you guys to experiment a little bit on your cell phones. I know that if you have an Android, you guys can switch your cameras to a manual mode. iPhones, it's a little bit more complicated. I really don't want you guys shooting on portrait mode because portrait mode is technically cheating. Portrait mode takes 2 different shots and then stitches them together using an algorithm. I really, really want you guys to try and focus on just changing your f-stop. So normally we would have been going into aperture priority mode, which is AV mode on your DSLR camera. But for now, you guys are just going to play around with whatever tool you have. So today, what I would focus on largely is trying to download an app on your phone or figure out how to manipulate your phone so that you can control your aperture. Okay? And this would have been your overall assignment, and then I can go in forward. This was other students from last semester, okay? All right, so now I'm going to go open this up a bit. Onto D2L. Give me 1 second, guys. Okay, cool. So here is our front page. Here's where I asked you guys to complete that survey. I ended up changing it to assignment, but you guys will be going to content if you need extra help for this. And you guys will be going to Aperture. Aperture is in your photography exposure under ISO, which we just completed. You guys should really know by now. ISO is your camera sensor and sensitivity to light. And aperture will eventually be a series of thin metal blades which opens and closes, allowing different amounts of light into your shot, which allows different depths of field. For this assignment, we're strictly going for shallow and deep depth of field. So here is an Aperture introduction PowerPoint. It has a lot of information on it. I think it's actually what we just went through. This would be the overall assignment for what you guys were supposed to have done had we been in school right now. But what we're actually going to do today is just show you different ways that you guys can learn more about Aperture. So this is a great video all on Aperture if you want to go over that for me. Okay, eventually I'm going to put your assignment right underneath this one right here. Okay, it'll most likely be called Aperture at Home. When you guys are done that one, I want you guys to go to assignments and submit it into the Aperture part or Aperture Dropbox, which will be under photography exposure, not Aperture assignment. It'll be called Aperture at Home. Okay, so now for the assignment. Okay, I will upload this for you. It's very kind of bare bones on the assignment. I'm hoping you guys watch this video. You're going to learn how to improve your photography skills by capturing different depths of field. I know you guys are stressed, and I know this is a really hard time, so I've tried to make this assignment as honestly chill as possible. But if you get stuck at all, please email me at abrubin@cbe.ab.ca. If you're using an Android, you guys can go to Pro or Manual mode. iPhone, you're going to need a third-party app such as Lightroom, CC, or Yamera. I like Yamera. It's free. It looks like this on the App Store. Okay, and here is how you'll control your It doesn't have it on here right now. Actually, it's called Focus. It's not called Aperture on this website, but when you click on this one here, you can manipulate it into changing your focus. I really like that one for the iPhone. I'm not going to lie, it's not super easy, but you guys can grapple with it at home. Okay, so that one was called Yamera. Okay, it's a free app you can download. So what you're doing for this assignment, this should take you guys a week. Honestly, it should take you maybe an hour. Consider your ISO. If you're inside, your ISO should be around 800. If you're outside, your ISO should be 100. Okay, remember, if you have a lot of light in it, don't overexpose your shot with too much ISO. You are taking 2 photos of the exact same subject, but with different f-stops, okay? So f-stop of 1.6 or f-stop of 22. You're going to try and create a shallow depth of field, okay, and then one with a deep depth of field. Do not take 2 different shots. I don't want a picture of, let's say, your dog at 1.6 and then your rabbit at f22, okay? No, I want to see the same shot 2 different times, okay? So take 2 photos of the exact same subject, but with different f-stops. Whatever you guys can do on whatever tool you're using, it's totally up to you, okay? But make sure you do not move. Staying in the same position as the previous photo with the same scene in your camera frame, take a second photo at the smallest aperture and observe the background again. So you'll see that different depth of blur. This one's shallow because there's a lot of light being let in. It's manipulating your background into a blur. This one has less light in. Remember that straw analogy. Using Lightroom or Lightroom CC on your cell phone, collect your metadata. So that is your aperture, your shutter speed, and your ISO. On a document of your choice, arrange your 2 best photos, one photo showing shallow depth of field and the other showing deep depth of field. Label your photos with the f-stop you used, include all your metadata, and please write a brief description of how aperture settings capture movement differently, or capture, I shouldn't have said movement, capture depth of field differently. Submit your document to the appropriate assignment folder on D2L. Okay, here's some examples. This is a very, very small description. I would like it to be bigger for this final assignment. Okay, that's pretty much it for today, guys.